You see, one of the things that I think about is we all have some victories in our lives. Some things that we have accomplished. One of the things that has really been encouraging me is some of the victories that I'm seeing in some of our newer members and some of our members who are just returning back to Christ. And even though they may not have conquered mountains yet, they're starting to win some victories. Because one of the best ways to build confidence and faith is really to get some victories under your belt and remember them. And so one of the things that we see here is I think about some of our new believers and some of those returning. I think about Steve Johnston. I think about how I baptized Steve a while ago. He's been working on his discipleship packet that I given him, but we had a need in the congregation. A lady in the congregation asking for help. And Steve doesn't have a whole lot, and he admits that, and he acknowledges that. But the thing that encouraged me was he gave me something in my hand and said, I don't have a whole lot, but here's a little bit of money to help her. And I was just thinking, you're learning right and you're working by faith. You may not have a little, but the little you had, you gave it to help your sister who is in need. And I just think, that's amazing. You're conquering giants right now of greed and of selfishness and of worldliness that you came out of, and you're learning to do it right because you're already prioritizing your Christian sister ahead of you. I think about Robert Holland, how he's returned back to the church, and he said, one of the main things I want to do is instill in my daughter's faith. I want them to learn lessons that I should have learned, to be faithful in ways that I should have been faithful. And I look at him and I think, he's getting it right. He's understanding it's not about pleasure, it's not about worldly possessions, it's about making a difference, and he wants to first start in his own home. He's conquering giants. Even though life is hard, he's prioritizing right. And that encourages me. Another one that I think about is Clay Carlson. Clay has dealt with some struggles in his life and some recent ones. But the other day he came by my house and we just spent some time talking. And even though he was talking about some of his own struggles, he started talking about how his heart is really empathetic to people who are even worse off than he is. And that he has this desire to get his life on track so that he can help other people, to take care of other people, to help people know God, to help those who are closest to him, like his family, know God. And I'm just thinking, here at the beginning of the conversation, you're talking about your own problems, but then you transition and you focus about some joy and saying, I want to make a difference in the lives of other people. And I just think, you got it right. You're making a difference. Even though you have some giants in your life right now, you're conquering some of them. Because by your faith, you're prioritizing other people. Another one that I think about is Teresa. I had a talk with Teresa this week. And I was just impressed by her because she was saying, you know what, I have struggles. We all have struggles, so that's, like I mentioned last week, we all have problems. But she's saying, you know what, I'm really proud of my son Stephen. She just couldn't stop bragging about him. And I was like, wow, Stephen's way better than I am. I already knew that anyway, Stephen, but you're already taller than me and you're, what, 12? But she was bragging about him and saying, I really want my life to turn around because my hope and dream is for him to thrive. And I just think, you know what? You've talked about how you lived life selfishly for this whole long period of your life, but now you're wanting to change so that you can think about Stephen and other people. And I just think, you know what? You're conquering giants. And even though we still have more giants to conquer, we know by faith we're going to conquer them. We win. We serve the one who's going to bring us victory. We all have reasons and remembrances in our lives where we can say, God has been powerful in those moments in my life. When I was on my knees begging for help, when I was crying, when I was emotionally broken, when I was hurt, when I felt worthless, you always came back and reminded me how much you love me, how you saved me, how you gave me grace, and that I can make a difference. And that what you did with Peter and what you did with Paul, you can do with my life as well. Sinful men making a difference, worshiping Almighty God, conquering giants. And I just think about that, and I think, church, we need to realize that we can conquer giants. It's important for us to realize the problems that we have in our lives that are getting in the way of us doing the will of God. And saying, you know what? I'm humble enough to admit them. Now I want to solve them with God's help by faith. It's also where we need to take some time and be thankful, to meditate, to pray, and just remember all the ways that God has been powerful in our lives, especially through the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's important for us to stand up with confidence and in faith and in boldness, already knowing that we have the victory, that no giant is bigger than our God. But if we have faith in God, all of us together will stand up as God's army, conquering giants. And God's will be done for us. So church family, I'm calling upon you to have faith, to have courage, to have boldness, and help me go and fight some giants.